Hello and welcome back to Every Last One, where I try overcoming my criminally vulgar shyness by talking to the internet about the music that says something to me about my life. I was looking for something to talk about in today's video and noticed that Meat is Murder is turning 40. I haven't done a Smiths video yet, so this seems like a perfectly respectable anniversary to mark. So buckle up, because today we're going to talk about all kinds of violence, record company meetings, and some of the best bass lines ever. Meat is Murder is the second studio album by English rock band The Smiths, released on the 11th of February 1985 on Rough Trade. Three of the songs that would make it to the album had been making the rounds as live cuts, the first of which being Barbarism Begins at Home, which was performed live as far back as December of 1983. Recording began in 1984 at Amazon Studios in Liverpool and Ridge Farm in Surrey, with the band producing themselves as well as Stephen Street working as engineer. To build the album's soundscape, Morrissey provided Marr and Street with some of his personal copies of BBC sound effect records from which to source samples. Morrissey would continue this practice on future Smiths singles and albums, most famously on their next record, The Queen is Dead. Musically, the band had grown far more adventurous, with Marr and Rourke channeling rockabilly as well as funk and punk influences across several of the tracks. Meat is Murder was also more stridently political than its predecessor. Morrissey's words would shift away from the autobiographical and become far more observational, with multiple songs written about various political, institutionalized, corporate, and personal violence. Surprisingly, the album made it to #1 on the UK pop charts, a notable achievement for a cult band, but well below their collective ambitions, and quite possibly became the inspiration for the lyrics behind the song You Just Haven't Earned It Yet, Baby. First track, The Headmaster Ritual, written in the summer of 1983, addresses the experience of being trapped in a British comprehensive school. Belligerent ghouls run Manchester schools, spineless bastards all. This song is written around the memory of a school as a machine that flattens souls and packages them into boxes so they can be homogenized. By those who attended them, these schools were commonly regarded as exam factories where students were little more than meat thrown into a grinder, forced to conform and not challenge anything. And should you try to question, you'd be subject to bruises as big as dinner plates. Corporal punishment was later prohibited in all state-sponsored education in the UK in 1986. 10 years later, Morrissey would flip the script, releasing the song The Teachers Are Afraid of the Pupils. Released as a single in the Netherlands, Marr noted that the song took about 3 years to write, the longest it took him to write any song. Most of the song's guitar parts, according to Marr, were played on a Rickenbacker. Marr was quoted as saying, "The Headmaster Ritual's main riff is 2 tracks of Rickenbacker. I wasn't specifically thinking of the Beatles' Day Tripper, even though it sounds like it, but I did think of it as a George Harrison guitar part." Second track, Rusholme Ruffians, is a shuffly song that begins with the lines, "The last night of the fair, by the big wheel generator, a boy is stabbed and his money grabbed, and the air hangs heavy like a dulling wine." Originally, this song made its debut in the Peel session in 1984. Named after an area of Manchester that I visited twice and was presumably a lot more rough in the 80s, driven by one of Andy's great bass lines and some stylish wordplay by Morrissey, it details a kind of inter-youth violence that would manifest in urban areas and places such as fairgrounds. I always think of Elvis when listening to this one, particularly due to the medley that starts with Elvis's Marie's the Name, His Latest Flame, the song that inspired Rusholme, often seen as one of the highlights of the Rank live album. The third song, previously known as the fast one, I Want the One I Can't Have, features possibly Morrissey's weakest vocal with the Smiths. Touching again on violence, this one features the lines, He killed a policeman when he was 13, and somehow that really impressed me. This song talks about the validation one gets from the performative of acting tough or behaving a certain way in the world, along with an exploration of what truly matters. What does one really need, with the line, "A double bed and a stalwart lover for sure. These are the riches of the poor. All you need is love." This song effectively articulates the lack of certainty around identity and agency that one has when they're young. The next track, What She Said, is influenced by a poem by Grand Central Station called I Sat Down and Wept, also quoted on the later track, Well, I Wonder. This one comes on like a whirlwind of guitar and motoric rhythms and ends with the closest things the Smiths would ever deliver to a drum solo, with Mike Joyce smashing at everything before the song breaks. This song's standout lyric is the cheeky line, I smoke because I'm hoping for an early death, and I need to cling to something. That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore was released as a single in July '85, though it only got as far as number 49 on the UK charts, likely due to the lack of any new material on the single, only live recordings. This song addresses an alleged intimate relationship that had been rumored to exist in the press between Morrissey and someone else. So there's this discussion on this one of like violence that's having one's reputation smeared, the idea of when you become famous, people think you're now public property, and that people can make assumptions and have the right to know and talk about anything you hold private, as well as persistent attempts by the press to expose Morrissey as a fake. The music here has been described by Simon Goddard in his Songs That Saved Your Life book about the Smiths as, quote, a monolithic ballad of tender yet imposing grace, a score of unreserved, raw beauty that Morrissey dutifully complemented. Marr's layered chords serve up some excellent jangle before a soaring guitar solo drives this one into a mantra of repetition. Love the false ending fade out and reemergence, which would make another appearance on their next record as intro on Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others. On this latter track, Stephen Street described this technique as, quote, a bit like opening a door, closing it, then opening it again, and walking in. Nowhere Fast is another song that originally appeared on the Peel session in '84. It features the playful lyric, I'd like to drop my trousers to the Queen. Every sensible child will know what this means. This would be an initial ripple before continuing to criticize the monarchy on the Queen is Dead album's title track. Musically, here we get another run of drums sounding like When a Train Goes By, like on Still Ill. Another killer bass line performed by Andy Rourke and some terrific picking and bends, plus some nice use of those BBC sound effects during its bridge section. I'd like to drop my trousers to the Queen. Every sensible child will know what this means. Well, I Wonder is a beautiful song and the kind of song that the Smiths would do better than anyone else. It's always been a standout track off the album for me, and I'd easily score it a 10. There's a chord in there that almost sounds like it's going into the track Back to the Old House. It first appeared in a slightly different mix on the B-side to How Soon Is Now, most definitely one of their most overlooked and underrated songs, and one which sadly never got played live. Morrissey sings, quote, this is the fierce last stand of all I am. And then there's this sound of rain fading in before the song ends on a similar note to There Is a Light. This one is the essence of unrequited love. Barbarism Begins at Home, the longest Smith song, was one that the band would play a lot. Here we have the classic lyrics, a crack on the head is what you get for not asking, and a crack on the head is what you get for asking. Released as a single in April of '85, Johnny used to love playing this one out live and often extended it or played it twice. Some versions would even go up to 15 minutes. Propelled by possibly Andy Rourke's best ever bass line, this track comes off sounding like proto-dance punk, propelled by Andy's funk and Mars chic influenced guitar riffs. Of the song's bass line, Mar commented, "Andy is quite rightly proud of that bass line." Drummer Mike Joyce concurred, "The bass line is a killer. It's interesting to see how Morrissey got his head around it. We'd be playing and when we'd stop, Andy would often continue with a Stanley Clarke bass line. It's incredible the way he can shift into that." Looking back, Johnny's been quoted saying that he didn't think the song really represented the band and felt that the track was perhaps a little bit corny. And finally, the title track, Meat is Murder. While the band's follow-up album, 1986's The Queen is Dead, is considered their best by fans and critics, the song Meat is Murder could be the one song that turned a generation of music listeners vegetarian. Like many Smith songs, it's most likely inspired by another band. Author John King has suggested that the title track was inspired by the 1983 song Meat Means Murder by the anarcho-punk band Conflict, which deals with the same topic and also opens at a slow pace. One of the lowest ranked Smith songs according to Rate Your Music. I think a lot of people dislike the recorded version of Meat is Murder because of the creepy, depressing beginning. The Slaughterhouse sounds tend to come off a bit cheesy and dated, not to mention heavy-handed. The song itself is good, especially if you listen to the whole album all the way through. It provides a poignant conclusion and come down after Barbarism begins at home. I do like the clever use of the reversed piano swells meant to sound like falling blades. While it could have used a bit more work in the arrangement, when stripped bare to its chords, it's a great song, despite the sound effects or what your personal stance is on the lyrical subject matter.
It's death for no reason, and death for no reason is murder.
At this time, the band's relationship with Rough Trade was changing and getting more complicated, with the label giving them less attention, even though the record had just gone to #1. Morrissey wasn't satisfied with their trajectory, wanting to break even bigger and much faster, vocalizing as much in the media, as well as titling their 1986 compilation album, The World Won't Listen. Meat is Murder would go on to be rated on top lists such as Rolling Stone's Top 500 Albums of All Time and 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. It would also lay the foundation for further experimentation with song structure, difficult themes on their follow-up, The Queen is Dead. Original CD copy, Sire Records, includes the song How Soon Is Now. Must have been some record company meetings where they decided to include that on the US editions. This is my OG Sire pressing of the album on vinyl. This album, sleeve, did not contain any signs of this, but when you pull it out and you see that B-side, the Sire label presents to you How Soon Is Now, starting off side 2. All Smith covers were like these black and white or sepia tinted versions of like an alternate reality that might have existed, displayed people in situations where they might not fully belong. This strong visual style would contribute to giving the songs like a timeless quality, not to mention make all of their albums and singles far more collectible. So this album features a bit of clever manipulation with the choice of photo here, originally from the 1969 documentary In the Year of the Pig about the Vietnam War. The original photo had Make War Not Love on the helmet of Corporal Michael Wynn, whereas the album cover has Meat is Murder on it in Morrissey's own handwriting. Reissue vinyl. Inner sleeve. This is my Sire 1985 How Soon Is Now, backed with Shakespeare's Sister. So this song that started as a B-side eventually made its way onto the Hatful of Hollow compilation in 1984. before someone deciding, hey, this is quite good. Maybe we should release this as a single. Eventually leading to Seymour Stein and the people at Sire deciding to put it in between Meat is Murder on the B-side of the American album. For the reissue vinyl in both US and in the UK, they've restored it to the way it was, where side B starts with Nowhere Fast. So which version of the vinyl should you get? In terms of sound quality, the OG Sire from 1985 sounds like what you would expect. It's a little thin on lows, and the soundstage isn't super wide. The 2012 reissue is cut from the 2011 remaster, and some fans have commented that it sounds flat on some songs, like a CD. From my listening, I can confirm the remaster lacking much punch, and it's a little bright. Not much bass added, but it's a wider sound, and little details like guitar strums and little percussion attack sounds are more defined. The remaster is still the better choice. Meat is Murder is an album about institutionalized violence in home and school, the concept of us human beings being the meat processed through a grinder, turned into just these like happy little worker bees. We're trapped by geography, circumstance, things like school or a job pulling you to stay in it just because you feel you need to make ends meet. It's got lots of difficult themes, but a lot of them are highly resonant themes, and I feel it's a highly underrated album that's possibly living in the shadow of their big triumph, The Queen is Dead. However, it's a great album that should be reconsidered as one of the greats of 1985, and I wanted to celebrate it today as part of its 40th anniversary. So that's gonna do it for today. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. I'm planning future videos on the Smiths as part of my Post-Punk Essentials series, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of those. Thanks for watching. You can see more of my videos right here. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you guys in the next one.